Hey, what's up? Travel Chronicles chapter 93. This could be the dark edition, but we're here. It's New Year's Eve. So I was going to do the recap of 2020 for me today. And you could also call it Why 2020 Sucked, Volume 1, implying that there's more than one volume of suckage worth of 2020, which there probably is. But just kind of thinking back, recapping the year in my own mind, thinking about this video. For me, the badness of 2020 started January 15th. The first 2 weeks of the year, they're all right, they're going okay. We've got the basketball league for the little kids. That's going. Then the 15th, and I think it was a Wednesday because we had practice. I think that was our practice day. And I couldn't go to practice that night because my mom was in the hospital. They had to take her there by ambulance. Something was wrong with her hip. They thought her hip had broken to start with. Here she had just dislocated her hip that she had had repaired. But, at the time, don't know that. So we're in the hospital. I get there. I go from work to the hospital. I'm there from maybe like 5 to 10. It's about 10 o'clock. She gets done. They just pop it back in place. That's a whole new experience for me. I wasn't sure if they were going to have to operate or what. We're kind of in the dark all day on what's going to happen. The doctor finally came in and he put it in place. And then she came back to stay with us after that for about 2 weeks. And she had a follow-up visit. And I ended up taking a day right then, just to get things ready at the house for her. And 2 weeks, my sister came up. She went back home. Oh, we had to have her dog too. So she went back home. Her hip came out again while she was at home with my sister. Same thing. They popped it back in place. Was it the first time she was with us or the second time? I can't remember. At one point, I also got really sick. It was the 23rd of January. I remember that. Because I wanted to call off that day, but I couldn't because there was nobody else at the plant. And given, the way things are now, you would not go to work, given the current state of things with the coronavirus. But, at that time, that wasn't a thing. It's still, all right, we're going to work through this cold or whatever and go back to work. But I was in really bad shape at the end of January. And I think Mom was still there, but I couldn't do much for her right then that day. So she goes back home. My sister comes. She stays with her. Hip comes out again. Goes back to the hospital. They put it back in place. She goes back home. I go to pick her up. She's going to come stay with us then because of the hip problems. And when I go to pick her up that day, boom, the hip comes out again for the third time. And this was all within a 5-week period. Her hip has dislocated 3 times. So they've put a brace on it to kind of hold it. I think we were doing it wrong pretty much like the whole time until the one doctor saw it like himself, went for a visit, and he put it on different. It's like, we haven't been doing it that way at all. But that makes a ton more sense. Way that he did it. But then she stayed with us. Right there at the beginning of March, that's when all the COVID stuff hit. Elijah and I were going to go watch the NCAA tournament game in Cleveland. We're hoping Dayton was going to get one of the high seeds and play there, so we could watch Obi Toppin play. That never happened, and it got canceled. Like we were going that Friday. We were going to go up that Friday, and had tickets and everything, and that Tuesday they canceled it. Right? think it's how. No, it didn't even get to selection Sunday. It was the Tuesday before or Wednesday before. Like, so we're like a week out, and they canceled. And it was like, you've got to be kidding me. And that's when all the stuff with coronavirus really started hitting in the U.S. It had hit Italy, I think, bad in January, end of January through February. And you're just seeing all these bad reports and people on ventilators and how many people are sick and how many people died. And the death rate's like 10% or higher. So you have no idea what's going on. It's like, hey, we're going to shut all the sports down. Like, there was a period of, I mean, it felt like a half a year, but I think it was like 80 some days or 90 days maybe where there were no sports, professional, college, anything. And then eventually it got to summer, and the NBA and Major League Baseball kind of kicked back off. But when that virus first hit in February, we were waiting to get in for mom's surgery because we were, hopeful, like, all right, let's, maybe we'll get her in early March. Obviously this wasn't something that had been scheduled for a long period of time. But when that hit, it was like, okay, we're pushing all elective surgeries out. And so then it was just pushed off to, we have no idea when it was going to happen. So from the end of February, now we're looking at, when is this surgery going to happen? And that was like, one of the most important things. And things got stressful at home from that point because the kids, they canceled school. I mean, they went to remote learning, we'll call it, which was basically, hey, Dad, go to work and then come back and do little kid math. I say little, it's junior high math, but come home and do math at the end of the day. So for me, I maybe worked at home, right? Like, 'cause a lot of people started working from home during this. I worked from home maybe 10 days, if that. But we had people quit. We had people get fired at work. And there was just not enough people to do the work at work. So, and I work in a chemical plant, so you got to be at the plant to do the work. You can't do all that from home. So, it worked out to where I think there was like a couple of weeks where I went into the plant like 2 or 3 days, and then after that I was just pretty much there all the time again. And it was, take your temperature when you come in. Are you feeling okay? And then, hey, we're gonna have masks that you gotta wear. So the whole rest of the year, from March on, we've been wearing masks. And I had to for my job. You go to the store, you go to anything, you're pretty much wearing the mask. So that was really different. But I'm going to work, I'm coming home, doing school work. Mom's at my house now all the time with the dog. It was stressful. It was hard to get a break, right? I almost go to work to get a break because that's how home was at the time. And the kids were there all the time, so Dina was stressed, and it was just it wasn't a great time. And when the thing first came out, the lockdown, however you want to call it, there's no toilet paper, no paper towels. Why does that go first? I don't know. Like, when there's a storm, eggs and milk go. But when there's this pandemic where you may get locked in your house, people were just taking a run on toilet paper and paper towels, any paper products. Were just gone. It was off, right? Couldn't get any type of cleaner, the disinfectant wipes, the sprays, nothing. So, also at some point in there, my son played his last high school basketball game, which was kind of bittersweet. They actually finished their season. because they did lose in the playoffs, so they were done. It wasn't something that got left hanging where they didn't get to finish their season. Their season was over. And he ended up fouling out of his last game, which is, I mean, kind of par for the course. He fouled out of his last game in junior high, even though it wasn't his foul. There's video evidence of it. It wasn't his foul. But he got called for it, so it was neat, I guess, that he ended high school and junior high the same way. After that, there was no track seasons. You know, like I said, there was no professional sports. There was no high school sports to start with. Through the summer, at the very end of May, they actually did take my mom, and it kind of happened. It happened kind of quick because we had been in contact with Morgantown. That was the doctor that needed to do the procedure for her. So it needed to be somebody that repaired replacement joints. And once they started allowing the procedures again, this is almost 2 months after the lockdown. It's over 2 months actually. And Mom she was hard because she would stay in the living room, in the rec room downstairs, because there's a bathroom right there where she could get to, and it was easier for her to get down there. So we tried to keep her not going up and down the steps, because you have to go up to the kitchen. But you know, for dinner, try to get her up there, and then take her back down. And it was just so hard. She was so particular because she wanted certain things for breakfast and coffee, and she just couldn't do anything for herself. So it made it hard. But they called, and then it happened within like a week or a week and a half that she was going to get that surgery done. So it was the end of May, like May 25th or 19th, somewhere around there. She went and she got that surgery. But they did not let her. It was like a Monday we took her down, and then by Wednesday they were releasing her. And it's like, you know, she's 90 years old. You know, you just cut her open, did whatever you did to her hip, and you know, she may have been up and like walked like 10 steps. And it's like, okay, yep, she's good. Like, nah, she needed a little extra. So I went and picked her up that Wednesday, I think, brought her home, and it was everything she had to get up the steps. I was looking at Dina like, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? Because she can't walk. You know, they released she can't walk. And I know they didn't want her to stay in the hospital because of COVID and whatnot, but I mean, it's like she needed to go somewhere else. She stayed with us. She did physical therapy for about 2 weeks, and then she got really, really bad. Like it was almost like mental. Like she just refused to walk, and there was just nothing we could do. Called an ambulance. The ambulance took her to Moundsville. It's Reynolds. Took her to Reynolds, and I was like, well, that's part of the WVU family of hospitals. They'll be able to transport her to Morgantown, and then she can see the doctor down there. You know, the next day, everything will be all right. And this is on I believe it was a Saturday or a Sunday. It was a Sunday. You know, and then they'll take her down there Monday, and she'll be fine. So I go back home. They call at midnight and say she's ready to be picked up. I was like, how? I was like, she can't walk. I go over there. We pick her up. She can't walk. They wheel her out in a wheelchair, and 2 nurses pick her up out of the wheelchair to get her in my car. I was like, I can't take her home because I can't get her into my house. I was like, she needs to go to Morgantown to see her doctor. No, like, we've released her. And I threw a fit. I threw a fit. That was probably the low point of the year for me. So they put her back in the car. They're not taking her back in. And I told Dean, I was like, all right, I got no choice. I'm going to have to take her to Morgantown. So I drive to Morgantown that night, get there about 3 in the morning, I think. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And check her into the emergency room. Doc takes I tell him everything that happened. She can't walk. You know how bad it is. I was like, she needs to see the surgeon. So I wait until about 5 o'clock, just in case they do something silly down there. It's like, oh, we're going to release her again. So I stay. They take her. I go back home. I think I ended up coming into work that day, but I slept for a little bit. I slept for about 5 hours and then came in. And then they released her on like another Wednesday or Thursday. But they released her to rehab, thankfully. So picked her up, took her to the rehab, and she stayed there for about 2 months. And during the summer at this point, the kids are still at home. They can't go anywhere. We're starting to loosen up a little bit. Elijah's starting to do some of the cross-country conditioning because maybe they're going to have a season. So he's doing that, and he's getting out a little bit more. Mom's no longer at home, so we're not as locked down as what we were, because we don't want to bring that virus into the house because it's really, really hard on older people. So we did as much as we could, to limit the kids going to different places, seeing their friends and stuff. And but it's going to be Elijah's senior year coming up, so we want him to be able to do whatever. We don't want to restrict him too much, so he starts going to some graduation parties and different things. And Mom ends up being in rehab for 2 months. When she gets out of rehab, I end up spending my vacation out of Bellsville, helping her get reacclimated with her house, and this is in August. Middle of August. So I spent a week out there. Then my sister came up, she spent a week, and it's like, hey, you know what, she's actually getting around really well. Like the rehab went well for her. I don't know that she liked the place all that much, and I think it's just because they were so restricted. Like, you couldn't just go visit people, you couldn't see people. You had to actually like schedule an appointment, and at first they would bring her to the glass. I would just call her. We went down and visited her a couple times like that. But then they started doing face-to-face, so we go down for, it's like a half-hour visit, but you had to schedule it in advance, so it's just kind of like whenever you could get in. Sometimes it was like during the week after work, I would go up there and see her. But at least I got to see her while she was there a little bit. But that helped a ton. It helped her get better. She was doing the rehab every day. People were staying on her. She always wanted money, though. It was real weird. She couldn't spend it on anything. She wanted that money. Then, Faith and Elijah both were in high school. Faith started as a freshman. Elijah's a senior now. They did have a cross-country season. They did let them run, but it was limited parents-wise. Once you got to the playoffs, you only got postseason, you only got 2 tickets you got 6 tickets per runner or something, which it's outside, and like there's no stands. It's like you're already socially distanced from everybody except for like maybe at the finish line. Like, that's it. It was so ridiculous, and you're not going to be there long because, hey, I'm going to watch my guys finish. You're there for 3-4 minutes. I mean, the entire race is 20 minutes that you're watching, so you're not spending 20 minutes at a finish line anyway. And it was the right decision. Yeah, they should have played sports. So, did that. At the senior day, we were able to get some more family there. My family didn't come because they're mostly older, so they're gonna, they try to stay away from the large gatherings. I think some of them. The whole thing, people wearing masks, not wearing masks, has been crazy. But, they came down. He ran his best time in high school. I think it was 16:50 or 51. So it was right in that range. But he had a really good senior day race. And Faith played volleyball in high school. And she actually led her. Their team did get shut down for essentially close contact. Nobody on the team had it, but one of the coach's husband had it. So they ended up quarantining for 2 weeks. They wouldn't let him play or anything. And it was weird because like in those type of team sports, they were doing the senior days. Most of the time, the senior game's like the last home game. But because nobody knew if you were going to be able to play that game or not, they started doing the senior days earlier in the season, which was smart because we would have probably missed ours. And you just play whatever games you could. She did do enough to let her, which is good. We only had 2 seniors on that team, so a lot of girls will be back next year. She's got some work to do to get better, but she's a freshman. She's learning. I thought that was good. Then she started playing basketball, so she's been playing basketball for the last 2 months now. They've got 8 games in. I think she's played the equivalent of about 6 of reserve, but she's starting to get the hang of it now. She's starting to feel more confident, I think, and she's playing a lot better. So it'll be interesting. But Martins Ferry basketball, boys, girls, now 20 years ago, it's all the same. It's hard to watch, and I got a bad feeling about the next 3 years. Let's just say that. But now we're at the end of the year. Mom's at home. She's been at home for the last 4 months or so. She's been doing well. I think mentally she's a little drained because she can't go anywhere, do anything. Not that she goes a ton of places, but when she goes to the doctor, she likes to go to the store and walk around and get dog treats and do a little bit of shopping. And she just feels really alone right now, which is, I understand, but I also don't want her to get really sick and die. I mean, she had pneumonia in February. I can't remember exactly the timeline of how that worked. The first time she was at my house, I think it was the first time she was at my house. She just had like some bad coughing fits, took her over, Med Express, they're like, she needs to go. Because they were on oxygen, they put her on oxygen too. So they took her to the emergency room, and then she was in with pneumonia, so she had 3 hip dislocations and pneumonia in the first 2 months of the year, and then a surgery. So she had a rough year, and it was rough, to deal with everything. For me, stuff that she was going through, stuff at home, stuff at work, just it never stopped. Like we didn't stop. We didn't take a pause. We just kept working the whole time. So everything that was going on outside, people maybe got a little bit of a break from their normal day to day. I never got that, and I had to deal with a bunch of extra stuff. So yeah. Will I be glad to see 2020 go? Yeah, but it's time. It's a man-made construct. So saying January 1 to December 31 is, in this case 366 days because of the leap year. Okay, that period's over. Now it's a new period of time. I'm sure there's a different demarcation in there that I can pick. Hopefully things are getting better. I don't think the coronavirus will go away until March, probably when things start to warm back up and the numbers start to decrease, and they'll back off on everything. And they have a vaccine now. Oh, there was also a presidential election. We got a new president, I guess. It's been disputed, although if you're on social media or anything says, oh no, it's not disputed, we know exactly who won. And it's like, I think the most part, it's gonna be indisputable because how it was handled in certain states was so bad that you can't go back and correct anything, and they've certified all the results now. So we're going to have a new president in January, for better or worse. It'll be interesting to see, because the Congress did some things at the end of this last presidential term to remove power from the president if they see him unfit. So we'll see how that goes with the oldest elected president in the country's history. And he couldn't barely hold it together on the campaign trail. remarkable that, you know, nobody showed up for his rallies or anything, but somehow he was able to garner 76 million votes. More popular than Obama was during re-election. Maybe he carried Obama. He might have been carrying him. And I said, get on my back, Barry. Let me carry you to the finish line. I could win this thing by myself. The only thing I'll say about the election that may or may not have been fraudulent is the votes. If you look at like Georgia and I believe Michigan, the difference between the presidential votes and the votes for the senator who was also up for election, the Republican president senator votes were real similar. There was a really large discrepancy between the president and the Democratic senator votes, where it doesn't make any sense. It's like the total presidential votes were way higher than the senators were. It's like people voted for president, but then didn't want to vote for senators. And what happened was all these like mail-in ballots and stuff, the only person they voted for was Biden. And they never voted down the ticket at all for any of the other Democrats. It's a really, really odd voting pattern. Let's put it that way. You want to say, oh, he got this many votes or that many votes, or there was more votes in this district than what they had registered voters. Yeah, that's fine. But there's a lot of anomalies from that election. I don't know that we'll ever fully know the answers, but it was questionable. It was. And I think that's about 2020 and the pandemic. Oh, there was also fires in Australia. He caught on fire. There's fires in California again. And aliens exist. Yep. Well, at least UFOs. Maybe they're drones or something. But they released that in May. Just nobody cared. All right. Well, hopefully 2021's better. This video's a little long. Hopefully YouTube will let me upload it. If not, then I'll be re-recording it. All right. Well, peace. See you later. Stay COVID free.